So, that was so great. We give thanks. So, today, let's start our story with a little reminder. We've had a story that we've told at Discovery twice this year. So we told the story first back in the spring when we talked about Jesus' call to the disciples. And then when Mike preached a couple weeks ago about the fishing thing, we did the same story again from Luke. And Luke and Acts were written by the same person, so we're kind of grounded in Luke and Acts. So let's remind ourselves of Luke 5 today. Simon Peter and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people." When the fishermen had brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed Jesus. Do you remember that story? Luke 5, either this year or another year, Luke pairs the call story of the first disciples with that miraculous catch of fish. Cool story. Here's another story we didn't mention this year, but in past years we've zeroed in on, and this is from Luke 6. It's called the disciple list. So throughout the New Testament, there's a list of those who were close followers of Jesus, disciples. And it, as nerdy Bible study people, we know each list has a little bit different composition of names, but this is the composition of names from Luke. And when the day came, Jesus called his disciples and chose 12 of them, whom he also named apostles. So disciples, apostles. So kind of a roll call here. Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew. And then there's another set of brothers, and James and John, and Philip, and Bartholomew, and Matthew, and Thomas, and James. So there's another James, son of Alphaeus, and another Simon, who was called the Zealot, and Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became the traitor. So a lot of double names in there. You can get kind of confused. There's a lot of Johns in the Bible. There's Simon, and there's Simon Peter, and there's even 2 Judases. So you can also get kind of confused, and I'll show I'm going to zero in now on 2 verses from what we just read. In the first text, one of the lines was, "And so also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee." And then in chapter 6, Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, and James and John. So there's also a kind of a proliferation of people named James in the New Testament. Jesus has a brother named James. We'll be hearing more about him. So it got a little confusing. Wednesday night, we're trying to sort out who's who, and there's a Mary, and there's a John, if you're really digging into Acts 12. So I did another round of research, and I'd like to publicly declare my husband was right. So it's James that we're talking about today. James, the disciple of Jesus, one of the 12, one of the core people. James, the son of Zebedee, beloved son of Zebedee, beloved son of his mother. His mother shows up in the Bible too. Maybe her name was Salome. Beloved son. James, beloved brother of John, one of the many Johns. James, beloved disciple, apostle of Jesus Christ. Beloved child of God. What happened to James, this James that we just read? What happened to him? Yeah. He was beheaded. by Herod. That's what happened to him. Isn't that horrible? When you think about it in context. Wow. So I guess he'd be the first disciple who was martyred for the faith. That's what happened at the beginning of the story today. Herod, the third Herod, there's three of them, it gets confusing, there's so much cruelty. Herod Agrippa had James killed, beheaded. So that's what we're dealing with today, Herod. And this third Herod is particularly good at spectacle. This Herod likes audiences. This Herod thrives on attention, thrives on eyeballs. This Herod knew how to run a little show and get attention. And maybe the more eyeballs Herod got, the more attention Herod got. Oh, that plumped up Herod's ego, made him maybe feel powerful. So Herod was looking to get a little more, and for some reason, he could dangle cruelty, and that would give him more attention. He played upon the worst side of human nature. So that Herod was so good at that. He knew, ooh, I got their attention now. I killed James. What can I do next? What did he want to do next? He wanted to kill Peter. So Herod set that up. He had Peter arrested for no reason. Made him feel good. Look at me. I can nab Peter for no reason, had him arrested, had him put in jail, and then ever the person was spectacle. He had a lot of cosplay soldiers surrounding Peter, as if Peter were some kind of criminal, which he was not. But Herod, he knew drama. He knew how to get eyeballs. Oh, look what I'm doing. Watch me. Got that? Watch me. I got another one of them from that vulnerable group that who knows what they're doing. But I'm sure they're dangerous. I'm going to arrest another one of them, put them in jail, and then on a particular day, I'm going to trot them out and pose in front of them, and you all come. I'll do it on the festival day so I can maximize the most eyeballs to see what's going on. Aren't I great? So that was what was up Herod's sleeve to do. So there's Peter in jail. So many details about how Peter was arrested, put in jail, and there were 4 squads of soldiers around him, which I think one detail somewhere said maybe that was 16 soldiers had to guard Peter, who until recently was helping the poor and staying at Mary's house and preaching God. So no, he needed squads of soldiers around him. And it says that in prison, he didn't just have one chain, he had 2 chains. So he was shackled up, and when he slept, he had soldiers on either side of him. He had soldiers all around him. And then across the whole prison complex, there were other soldiers. And so it was the night before Herod's big spectacle, when he planned to get a big selfie in front of Peter the next day in front of everybody. But that very night, what happened? An angel of the Lord appeared with light, kind of touched by the angel. Remember that story? Well, touched by an angel. An angel of the Lord appeared with light and somehow got into the prison complex and jail, appeared with Peter, nudged him, and said, "Wake up. We got places to go and things to do." And Peter's chains immediately fell off. Peter got ready, and somehow or other, the angel and Peter made it out through the labyrinth of all the Roman soldiers and through the gate and into the city. They were free. Angel disappeared. Peter's in the city. Peter then goes, "Was that a dream? I don't think so. I'm free." Wow. And where does Peter go? Mary's house, the house church. and appears there. And then who comes out to the door when he's knocking? Rhoda. And Rhoda recognizes his voice, is so overjoyed. Does she let him in? I think she was stunned. She was just overwhelmed. She went in and told the rest of the people at the house church, Peter's there. And they said, did they say hurrah? No, they said, you're cuckoo. There's no way that's happening. But Peter kept knocking, and there he was. Do you realize what an extraordinary story this is? It flips the script for this community. The script that they knew was those Herods, years and years of tyranny from Rome, from Grandpa Herod. Remember Matthew 2, the massacre of the innocents and how Jesus fled as a baby with his family to Egypt? That was a Herod. And then, I revisited the story of Jesus' journey to the cross, and there's mention of a Herod there. It's another Herod. Dad Herod, we'll say. And he could have been helpful, and he wasn't super helpful. And then I thought, was he the one? No, it was Pontius Pilate who also was about spectacle. He led Jesus out before the people and then said, do you want me to free Jesus or Barabbas? And the people wanted who got freed? Barabbas. So some tyrants, they just know how to play on the worst parts of human nature. It's a thing. So the early church knew that. And Jesus had been cruelly killed for no good reason on a cross, totally cruel thing. They had experienced that cruelty. And the writer of Luke Acts knows that story and is building on that. So if you read Acts 12, it is kind of an echo of Jesus' story. It was the Passover. There was an evil tyrant. There was an innocent person arrested. There was a spectacle aspect. And at the height of the festival, there was going to be this crowd. So the writer of Luke Acts is playing it up with Peter's story. And in addition to that, in the context of Acts, Stephen had been killed. Remember, the deacon had been killed. And then James. James had just gotten killed. So the authorities knew how to go after the leadership of this early movement of Jesus Christ and try to decapitate it. So, wouldn't that have been terrifying? Would you have been frightened that someone is coming after all your friends and they're having that big success? Yeah. And then earlier I was thinking about when I realized who James was, it's just sickening how James was taken out. So, chilling story with kind of a slapstick ending. The angel comes in, weaves the way through all those guards, all the theater, gets Peter out of there and gets him over to the house church, and Peter's freed. He flips the script. There's a different narrative that comes to life. And it's different, it has a different ending, and it's kind of silly. It's so silly and joyful that, Rhoda doesn't bring him in, Rhoda's not believed. It's just silly, crazy joy. What a wonderful thing. So, what's our takeaway? How do we flip the script when we feel oppressed or when there's tyranny or we feel like hopeless? This pattern, there's a pattern, we can get so depressed. Whether it's our own health or whether it's someone in our lives or whether it's things going on in our society, we can get pretty depressed. So, how do you fight oppression? What's a good response? Well, a first thing is, what were they doing in the house? They were praying. Twice in Acts 12, it zeroes in on that early community and talks about prayer. When James died, they gathered and they prayed they prayed fervently. When Peter escapes and he gets to the house, what were they doing? A bunch of them, it says a bunch of them had gathered and they were praying. So do not denigrate the power of prayer. What kind of prayer? I think it was a prayer of knowledge about who God was, a prayer to a God of love and justice, a prayer, I always look to Romans 4:5, a prayer to having trust in the justifier of all unrighteousness. I trust in the God who redeems all unrighteousness. That's the God I believe in. A prayer to that God, no matter what is going on, a prayer there. And another aspect that came to my mind, and I didn't warn him, I think that early community had grit. Are you listening, John? Do you think that early Acts community had grit? Yes? So grit was a big theme in our household this week. John, I should have had John come up and I could do a little mini interview. Don't worry, John. I wasn't sure if I was going to share this or not. But John had a big interview this week at UNO. Big interview, and you passed. Congratulations. Yay. So to prepare for the big interview, he had to watch a TED Talk on grit, and then read an article about grit, and then do more study about grit. So I'll see if I can get this in a nutshell. So in recent years, people were studying what helps students thrive. And then not just students, what helps people get through hard things, what helps military people get through, or what helps people stay in business or through hard things. And is it, their upbringing, or, did they have a solid financial background? IQ, do they have, IQ? Do they have a certain skill set? Or, different theories prevailed for what helped students or anybody have, quote, success or make it through life. And the surprising result was something people had in common if they made it through hardship was that they had grit. So, John, what is grit? What is grit? Just give me an example of grit. Mm-hmm. Okay. It is the passion and perseverance you have to do something. And when you fail, how is it, in the framework of studying grit, how is failure seen? Is failure like, forget about it, I failed? Is that, or how do they see failure in that? Yeah. So failure is normalized. Failure is normal. Setback is normal. And just kind of having a, quote, growth mindset that you can get through this versus a fixed mindset of like, it's Herod, we're over, here we go again. Third Herod, we're toast, give up. Grit gives you, you got to process it, but that we have a goal and we're going to work on our goal and we can overcome it. And I'm not embarrassed to have failure or feel humiliated or lose a friend or have a terrible thing happen. There's this idea of grit. So I was thinking that prayer helps us have grit. In prayer, we anchor hope in this God of all righteousness who redeems all unrighteousness. We have trust in that God. We might not be able to do it all, but that goal or that vision of who God is maybe helps us arise, persevere, sense the Spirit pumping through our veins. When we pray, we see what we're supposed to do, and then we have the grit to pick up and try again and try again. So I hope our church is a place of grit. It reminds me of that thing we said all last fall, that we're not the church with the tall steeple. We're not the church with the big pipe organ. We're not the church that has a big bankroll, a lot of dough. But we are a South Omaha church that has, remember that S word? Scrappy. I thought scrappy is a lot like grit. I hope that we are part of that Acts tradition of gritty prayerfulness, because that's how the script gets flipped. And we point to this bigger narrative of the good news. So let's be about goodness. That's what the early church was doing. Chapter 11, they were feeding people during the famine. Let's keep our focus there and let goodness prevail through us. In Christ's name.